Aya Thompson stepped off the metro at Omotesando station just before 9 a.m., her heart pounding with anticipation. Clad in a sharply tailored trench that hinted at the angular kimono-inspired lines she favored, she carried a slim portfolio clutch emblazoned with her logo, a stylized chrysanthemum merging into spray paint drips. Outside the sprawling, glass-walled registration complex for Tokyo Fashion Week, a line of sleek press cars and designer SUVs gleamed under neon signage, while a carpeted runway stretched from the entrance toward a canopy of chrome. Inside the lobby, the air crackled with polished excitement. Interns in black suits buzzed with clipboards, assistants in silk scarves whispered into headsets, and influencers in avant-garde streetwear angled for the perfect selfie beside LED screens. Flashing the week's schedule, Aya approached the glossy white check-in desk, where two sharply dressed PR agents reviewed guest lists on tablets. She pressed her portfolio to her side and offered a calm smile. "Good morning," she said in fluent Japanese, voice clear. "I'm Aya Thompson. I submitted my application for the Emerging Designers Showcase." She slid her slim badge holder across the lacquered counter. The taller agent, blonde brows furrowed, tapped her tablet. "Aya Thompson?" she repeated, eyes scanning the screen. "I'm sorry, Ms. Thompson. Your name is not on our list." Her voice was polite but final. Aya's pulse fluttered. "I completed every requirement. Mood board, full collection lookbook, proof of runway-ready samples. I even flew in my team from Osaka to help fit models." The second agent, a younger man in a crisp blazer, frowned. He scrolled through the tablet, then shook his head. "The selection committee determined your aesthetic doesn't align with our theme this season," he said. "We appreciate your interest, but we cannot accommodate you." Aya felt heat rush to her cheeks. She pressed her lips together, swallowing the sharp sting of rejection. Nearby, models swept past in sculptural dresses and trainers, their confidence a silent taunt. She tried one last appeal. "Is there a wait list? A back-of-house slot? I can adapt." The taller agent cut her off with a brief, rehearsed smile. "I'm very sorry. You may watch the shows at the public viewing area across the street, but there's no runway opportunity." She handed Aya a branded tote bag, an empty promise of swag, and gestured toward the lobby exit. Aya retrieved her portfolio with measured grace, bowed her head, and stepped away. Through the glass doors, she watched as an assistant ushered in a string of eager interns carrying racks of sponsor gifts. The bright lights of the official tent beckoned, but Aya turned instead toward the side alley, mind already racing with a plan to claim her place. Outside the official gates, if she had to. That afternoon, Aya slipped back into her cramped Harajuku atelier, an eclectic loft of peeling white paint and exposed beams, where the hum of her trusty sewing machine mingled with the scent of lacquered denim. Sunlight slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating bolts of discarded kimonos, graffiti-stenciled canvases, and heaps of salvaged zippers. Her two assistants, Aiko and May, stood ready by a long folding table strewn with sketches, fabric swatches, and spools of neon thread. Aya set her tote bag down and summoned them close. "They shut us out," she said, voice low but fierce. "But tonight, we'll bring the runway to them." Rising to her elbows, she cleared space on the table for 12 black garment racks someone had loaned her. "I need every prototype you've stitched," she instructed, dropping a stack of half-finished jackets onto the surface. "We transform this entire loading dock into our own fashion stage." Within the hour, Aiko was cutting graffiti print panels into structured bodices, her rotary cutter blade humming like a bullet train. May deftly unraveled seams of a cheap department store lining, replacing it with hand-embroidered silk featuring chrysanthemum motifs. Aya moved between them, her eyes alight, pinning deconstructed kimono sleeves onto the backs of sleek bomber jackets, whispering encouragement as she molded raw materials into shapes that fused Tokyo's glittering metropolis with the timeless grace of geisha robes. By twilight, a forklift rumbled up to the rear door of the disused department store in neighboring Daikanyama. Under the watchful gaze of dusk, sympathetic logistics workers, hired through whispered favors, unloaded LED runway panels, steel stakes, and coiled extension cords. Aya directed their placement with precision. a straight stretch of 20-foot panels laid end to end, anchored by ballast weights and framed by abrupt, graffiti-tagged plywood backdrops. Meanwhile, her collective of artisans, an ensemble of marginalized creatives, a Taiwanese silk weaver, a Filipino beadworker, and a Korean denim sculptor, arrived in a flurry of bicycles and scooters. Together, they draped a dozen mechanical mannequins in Aya's most audacious pieces. A neon pink trench, reimagined with hand-painted cherry blossoms settling like confetti. A deconstructed hakama, whose pleats unraveled into fringed mesh, and a sleek jumpsuit whose kimono collar fanned into architectural wings. In the golden haze of street lamps flickering on, Aya stepped back to survey the guerrilla atelier she had summoned from scratch. Old speakers crackled to life with an insistent J-pop rebellion track, its pulsing beat echoing off corrugated steel. She turned to her team, checking the time on her phone. 7:30 p.m. Models, baristas in edgy uniforms, office workers in crisp slacks, and local skateboarders borrowed from the park, lined up behind the entrance, anxious and electric. Aya raised her hand. "Tonight," she announced, "we show Tokyo that true fashion cannot be penned in by velvet ropes." Her voice rang clear in the half-empty loading dock. She let her gaze sweep the racks of bold garments, imagined the flash of smartphone cameras, and felt the same spark of exhilaration she'd had as a child first sketching designs on napkins. Aiko handed her the mic, a salvaged wireless set, and with a steady breath, Aya declared, "Let the show begin." That evening, as Tokyo's neon signs flickered alive, Aya stepped into the maze of Shibuya's backstreets, her phone in hand, finger poised over, a fresh social media post. She tapped out a cryptic message. "Runway rising tonight, 6 p.m. Shibuya Center Street, Loading Bay. Belonging beyond boundaries." Within seconds, the announcement pinged through close-knit WeChat and Line groups of street-style insiders, avant-garde, bloggers, and sympathetic logistics crews. Moments later, Aiko and May darted out into the district, plastering neon pink flyers on lampposts, cafe windows, and the steel shutters of closed boutiques. Each flyer carried a stylized chrysanthemum spray-painted across Aya's logo and a QR code that glowed under smartphone cameras, scanned by trendsetters eager for the unannounced show. By dawn, Shibuya's digital undercurrent hummed with anticipation. Hyperlocal fashion forums buzzed with speculation. Underground Kucha takeover? Aya Thompson is back? Runway enthusiasts mapped the coordinates, plotting routes through the labyrinth of pedestrian overpasses and sushi stalls. Even CCTV operators at the Paco department store corridor detected unusual foot traffic near the unmarked loading bays, but dismissing it as typical evening deliveries. Back at the abandoned department store dock, Aya's core team of artisans arrived one by one. The Taiwanese silk weaver unloaded hand-dyed fabrics that shimmered like liquid jade. The Filipino beadworker clutched crates of iridescent pearls, and the Korean denim sculptor rolled out sculptural gauze panels that resembled armor. Aya greeted each with a firm nod and led them to the scattered garment racks now bristling with her collection. Next, sympathetic logistics workers backed up a flatbed truck loaded with lightweight LED runway panels, each design etched with subtle graffiti motifs that would glow under ultraviolet spotlights. Aya and her crew stacked the panels end to end, aligning seams until they formed an 18-foot catwalk that stretched down the narrow alley. Aiko threaded extension cords through metal grates, while May calibrated two battery-powered uplights to wash the space in neon hues. At 4:30 p.m., Aya donned her own statement piece, a sculptural trench coat of layered kimono silk and reclaimed urban canvas, and slung a compact wireless speaker over her shoulder. She moved through the final checks, tightening bolts on runway supports, pinning glow-in-the-dark safety tape along the catwalk's edges, and cueing the first track on her phone's playlist, a driving J-pop rebellion anthem with pulsing bass. By 5:45 p.m., the models assembled behind a graffiti-tagged plywood barricade at the dock entrance. They were a motley crew, a barista in high-waisted trousers, an office clerk in a deconstructed blazer, a skateboarder in hand-painted overalls, each embodying Aya's vision of urban couture without boundaries. Aya stepped to the mic she'd plugged into a battery pack and tested the sound. Crisp, with just the right echo for dramatic pauses. She glanced at her watch. 5 minutes to go. Pulling a hooded jacket over her shoulders, she walked to the makeshift catwalk's mouth and raised her voice. Welcome to Shibuya Center Street, where fashion belongs to every street corner. At exactly 6 miles p.m., she tapped the speaker icon and the opening beats thundered through the alley, reverberating off concrete walls. From the glow of smartphones around the block, the first onlookers emerged. Curious office workers, evening shoppers, and food stall vendors, all drawn by the beat and the promise of something unprecedented. Aya took a breath, lifted her chin, and stepped aside. The first model glided forward, heels clicking on the runway panels as ultraviolet lights revealed neon kanji and silver thread catching the shadows. As the procession began, Aya watched from the sidelines, heart alight. In that moment, amid the hum of expectant crowds, the flash of phones, and the glow of her impromptu runway, Shibuya's streets had become her fashion week. As the first model's heels clicked against the LED panels, a ripple of astonishment surged through Shibuya's center street. Within seconds, office workers spilling from the nearby corporate towers halted mid-stride, their commutes paused as jaws dropped at the unexpected catwalk. Shopkeepers peeked from behind rolling shutters, steam from ramen stalls curled around the metal barricades, and a swarm of onlookers pressed their phones to record history in the making. Aya stood at the runway's start, the neon glow from her street couture trench reflecting off her determined eyes. Behind her, the flatbed truck DJ, a Tokyo punk violinist fused with a taiko drummer, wove a rebellious score that pulsed through the crowd like an electric heartbeat. The second model emerged, each step revealing a kimono-inspired jacket splashed with overspray cherry blossoms, the underlayers of upcycled vinyl catching flashes of ultraviolet light. A cluster of white-collar salarymen, ensconced in their black suits and briefcases, stopped to watch, their eyes widening as a skateboarder-turned-Vogue master executed a flawless pause mid-stride. A local barista abandoned closing duties to cheer, his latte art left unattended. Even a pair of uniformed traffic cops, initially unmoved, exchanged incredulous glances and slowly raised their walkie-talkies, uncertain whether to break up the spectacle or join in. By the third look, the district's traffic ground to a full stop. Yellow taxis lined up bumper to bumper, their drivers leaning out windows to photograph the show. Buses idled at the crosswalk, riders craning over rails. The nearby Shibuya crossing, legendary for its choreographed chaos, grew still, save for this new, spontaneous choreography of fashion and protest. A sudden cheer erupted as a model unfurled a trailing obi sash, reimagined as a giant graffiti banner reading, "Belonging Beyond Boundaries." The phrase glowed in phosphorescent paint, undulating down the runway as if alive. Phones rose in unison, live streams igniting across platforms under hashtags SHOS, Runway Rising, and Tokyo Reclaimed. At 7:15 p.m., police sirens wailed in the distance, but the crowd only surged forward, unwilling to relinquish the moment. Aya seized the mic again. "This is our runway," she shouted, voice amplified by the flatbed speakers. "Fashion for every street, every soul, every dream." Her words, carried on the taiko's deep resonance, ignited a cathartic applause that reverberated off the glass facades of department stores. Down the block, the organizer of Tokyo Fashion Week himself, event director Kuroda, watching security monitors, paled as he witnessed Aya's unsanctioned spectacle commandeer the heart of Shibuya. Sponsors on his live stream demanded action. Advertisers feared association with a stalled district. In that moment, Aya's models were more than performers. They were urban revolutionaries, halting the city's pulse long enough to prove that true fashion cannot be confined to a single tent. As the final model made her triumphant lap beneath the graffiti banner, the crowd parted in respectful clearing, granting her a runway of rapt attention. Smoke machines hissed twin plumes as LEDs finally dimmed, leaving only the echo of pounding drums and the glow of an awakened creative spirit. Aya stepped forward, absorbing the sea of awestruck faces. Her defiant vision had not only halted a district, but had etched itself into Tokyo's living tapestry, demanding that fashion belong to everyone, everywhere. That night, Aya returned to her studio only briefly to catch her breath before the tide of messages and media requests swept her back into action. By 10 p.m., Tokyo Fashion Week's emergency white tent boardroom, normally reserved for VIP cocktail hours, had been repurposed into a crisis command center. Event director Kuroda, flanked by his executive team in sharp suits, huddled around a long mahogany table under stark fluorescent lights. On one wall, a bank of security monitors replayed Aya's runway takeover. On another, live social media feeds scrolled in real time. Tens of thousands of tweets and videos tagged Jucha Runway Rising. Kuroda slammed his fist on the table. "We're bleeding sponsors and media partners by the minute," he barked. "If we don't act now, they'll walk." His second in command, Ms. Fujimoto, tapped her tablet. "We've already lost premium cosmetics and 2 major tech brands. The live stream is trending globally. Our PR team recommends capitulating, offering Aya an official slot." Silence fell as Kuroda's aides exchanged uneasy glances. Aya's silhouettes, backlit against the neon Tokyo skyline, hovered on every screen. Finally, Kuroda inhaled and nodded. "All right, call an emergency vote. We convene the Fashion Week board now." By 11:30 p.m., the boardroom doors swung open to admit a dozen key stakeholders, sponsors, senior designers, and the chair of the Japan Fashion Council. Aya's show had halted public transit in Shibuya, and now the power brokers faced the fallout. Kuroda presented a stark choice. Deny her, and we fracture our credibility with the global media, and lose our major partners. Embrace her, and we restore order and salvage our brand. Ms. Nakamura, the council chair, rose and cleared her throat. "Fashion must evolve with its audience," she said. "What Aya has done, transforming our streets into a runway, aligns with Tokyo's avant-garde spirit. I move that Aya Thompson be granted an immediate headlining slot in tomorrow's primetime showcase." A hushed vote followed. Tablets projected each eye glowingly in green or nay in red. Within minutes, the motion carried unanimously. Kuroda leaned forward, voice already formal. "It is decided. Aya Thompson will be integrated into our official schedule as a primetime headliner. We will issue a public statement at first light." True to his word, at 6 a.m., the Tokyo Fashion Week app buzzed with notifications. Official update. Aya Thompson's Runway Rising show has been adopted into the prime headliner slot, tomorrow at 7 p.m. Main Tent A. At 8 a.m., Kuroda faced a wall of cameras in front of the Fashion Week marquee. Reporters shouted questions as he delivered a polished apology. "We underestimated Aya Thompson's vision. Today, we correct that mistake. We invite the public to celebrate her ingenuity in Main Tent A." Flashbulbs popped, and the statement circulated instantly across every major news outlet. Meanwhile, Aya, still flushed from last night's triumph, received the notification on her phone while packing samples for tomorrow's integrated show. Her phone vibrated ceaselessly with congratulatory texts from models, artisans, and fans. "You did it! Tokyo belongs to you now. See you on the official runway." That evening, as the Shibuya district returned to its relentless rhythm, Aya's message looped on the giant screens along Center Street. Runway Rising, from streets to spotlight. The city's pulse returned stronger than before, now fueled by the knowledge that a single designer's refusal to be silenced could halt a district and rewrite the rules of Fashion Week forever. Sprosit ChatGPT. At dawn's first light, Aya arrived at the main tent loading dock with her entire creative collective in tow. Aiko, the cut-and-sew virtuoso, Mei, the embroidery specialist, and the Taiwanese silk weaver whose hands had dyed each panel to match Aya's neon palette. They stepped into a cavernous backstage area normally reserved for couture houses, its powder blue walls lined with rolling racks of designer gowns. Yet here, Aya's street-forged looks took precedence. A dozen designs hung in order of appearance, each tagged with her handwritten notes on final adjustments. Final rehearsal and creative autonomy. By 10 a.m., the stage crew had laid down gleaming white runway panels over polished concrete, and a row of high-output spotlights arced overhead like ceremonial sentinels. Aya convened her models, a motley troupe of baristas, office workers, and skateboarders she had personally cast, and led them through a brisk rehearsal. She instructed the barista-turned-Vogue master to adopt a more fluid turn at the runway's U-bend, urging him to let the neon kimono sleeve catch the light just so. May hovered nearby with a stepladder, securing a stray bead on a chandelier-like kimono collar so that it would catch each flashbulb on the official runway's tighter-spaced lights. Aya insisted on full creative authority. When the show's technical director proposed replacing her graffiti-etched plywood backdrops with sponsor banners, Aya calmly shook her head. "These panels are our statement," she said. "Erase them, and you erase the message." After tense murmurs, the director relented, and the plywood, spray-painted with neon chrysanthemum motifs, remained in place. Press preview and industry buzz. At 1 p.m., an exclusive press preview began. Aya emerged onto the runway in her signature urban kimono coat, its upcycled vinyl panels gleaming under the lights. Cameras clicked furiously as she paused at the runway's midpoint and offered a curtsy that blended geisha poise with street dance flair. Journalists scribbled notes in their leather journals. Defiant elegance. Street couture steals the spotlight. Aya Thompson disrupts high fashion's hierarchy. Video crews recorded her every gesture, and social media influencers live-tweeted minute-by-minute reactions from within the tent. Opening night spectacle. By 7 p.m., the tent's velvet ropes parted to admit a capacity crowd. Vogue editors in shearling coats, international buyers in tailored suiting, and a throng of trend-hungry influencers armed with ring lights. Aya emerged first in a sculptural suit whose asymmetrical lapels unfurled like origami cranes. The audience gasped as she manipulated the folds to reveal neon underlayers, symbolizing the hidden creativity of marginalized voices. Each subsequent look elicited murmurs of admiration. A maxi dress of silk and chain-link mesh. A leather bomber emblazoned with stenciled kanji reading, "Belonging Beyond Boundaries." Triumphant finale and unified ovation. For the finale, Aya herself joined the runway, wearing a floor-length coat of upcycled railway tar canvas, its hem embroidered with luminescent threads spelling out "Tokyo Reclaimed." With her collective at her side, she took the final walk, models framing her like sentinels. Spotlights converged, and a drum and bass remix of traditional taiko rhythms thundered through the tent. As she reached the runway's end, she turned to face the audience and raised her arms in a victor's salute. The applause was instantaneous and deafening. Buyers leaped to their feet, editors shouted, "Encore! Encore!" and every camera flash strobe-lit the moment. Aya's heart hammered as she soaked in the standing ovation, her street guerrilla show now enshrined as prime Fashion Week spectacle. Aftermath and industry reverberations. In the days that followed, reviews poured in. Aya Thompson, the designer who broke Tokyo Fashion Week's glass runway. How street couture stunned the establishment, and from snubbed artist to prime headliner. In 12 hours. Social media metrics showed Aya's show outperformed every headliner that week. Hashtags Joe Runway Rising and Tokyo Reclaimed trended worldwide. Buyers placed orders for her upcycled kimono jackets before the tent even cleared. As Aya packed her studio that night, the plywood backdrops still speckled with neon paint, she reflected on the journey. The rejection on marble steps, the guerrilla atelier under flickering lights, and the district halting takeover that led to this official triumph. In that moment, she understood that true fashion's power lies not in velvet ropes, but in the boundaries it dares to cross, and the voices it refuses to silence. 2 days after her triumphant main tenter debut, Aya Thompson stood beneath the glass canopy of Shibuya's iconic Hachiko Plaza, where an enormous LED billboard now looped footage of her guerrilla runway takeover alongside clips from her official show. Below, a diverse crowd gathered for the launch of the Belonging Beyond Boundaries public art installation, a week-long celebration of Aya's ethos across Tokyo's most trafficked districts. Morning unveiling at Hachiko. At dawn, Aya joined Mayor Tanaka and the World Fashion Council's president on a temporary stage erected beside the Hachiko statue. Behind them, the billboard displayed side-by-side images of her street show, models striding past stopped taxis, and her high-gloss runway debut. The mayor pressed a ceremonial button, and the screen shifted to reveal a dynamic mural. Aya's neon chrysanthemum motif overlaid on photographs of actual commuters, skateboarders, and construction workers at Shibuya Crossing. Cheering erupted as Aya unveiled the final graphic, titled Tokyo Threaded Together. Daytime pop-up workshops. Throughout the day, Aya led free workshops at pop-up studios in Shinjuku and Harajuku. In one corner of a repurposed shipping container, she guided local teens in deconstructing thrifted kimonos and reassembling them into urban silhouettes. In another, she coached office workers through improv runway walks in high heels, urging them to find their own rhythm on a mini LED catwalk laid across a pedestrian plaza. Camera crews filmed every moment for her documentary series, Street to Spotlight, set to stream on Japan's public broadcaster. Evening district-wide runway relay. As dusk fell, Aya orchestrated a district-wide runway relay, a mobile catwalk that snaked from Omotesando's tree-lined boulevards through the neon-lit alleys of Golden Gai. Models carried modular LED panels on dollies, creating a continuous path of light. Each intersection became an impromptu runway. Cafe terraces emptied as patrons cheered. Street vendors paused their grills to snap photos, and subway station screens flashed Aya Thompson Live with real-time video. The relay paused at 9 points, each marked by a different community collaboration, from Tokyo's deaf dance troupe interpreting the show in sign language to a troupe of elderly taiko drummers setting a heartbeat tempo for the final march. Midnight grand finale at Rainbow Bridge. At midnight, the procession arrived at Rainbow Bridge, its color-changing lights set to Aya's signature neon palette. She stepped onto a floating platform moored in Tokyo Bay, wearing a luminous kimono coat woven with fiber-optic threads that pulsed with each beat of the music. Behind her, models lined the deck in silhouettes against the city skyline. A synchronized drone show erupted overhead, spelling out, "Belonging beyond boundaries in sparkling lights." Aya raised her arms as the drones formed her chrysanthemum logo, the bridge's lights mirrored in the bay's glassy surface. Global impact and legacy. By dawn's early light, headlines in fashion capitals from New York to Milan proclaimed Tokyo's street-style visionary and Aya Thompson, the new vanguard of inclusive couture. Instagram geotags mapped her public art. Installations across 20 Tokyo neighborhoods, inspiring copycat events from Seoul's Gangnam district to Berlin's Kreuzberg. Major brands offered collaborations, but Aya's final message remained, that fashion's true power lies in uplifting every voice. As the sun rose, Aya walked Rainbow Bridge alone, the air crisp with promise. She gazed back at Tokyo's skyline, past the LED billboards and glass towers, to the crowded streets where her journey began. In that moment, she knew she had not only halted Fashion Week, but had woven the city and the world into a single, boundless runway.